We have persuaded Steve Hilton to leave California briefly, even momentarily, and he's sitting with me now in New York City. OK, are these protests, these violent protests on the street and college campuses, are they a nail in the coffin of Biden's campaign? Maybe that's going too far.
Well, there's a number of nails that seem to be going into that coffin. By the way, I just have to say, Stuart, there's not many places in America that you could come from to the chaos here in New York and say it's an improvement. But for someone from California, that is basically true. Look, the thing is, it's representative of what you see generally across the country, which is just things falling apart.
Yes.
That is the sense of it. You look at the border, you look at crime, now these protests, and it's all the same thread, exactly what you just said, which is there are no consequences for bad behaviour. And in fact, it's flipped the other way around. There's almost like there's an incentive to do the wrong thing, and if you do the right thing, you're punished. You go back to that bodega owner, the one that Trump visited, remember? He was the victim and fought back, and he was the one that was first of all punished, not the criminal. And that is what Biden sits, or slumps, at the apex of this mindset of just letting the bad things happen and punishing the people who do the right thing.
This reminds me of the 1960s. I'm old enough to go way into the 1960s, that sense of instability and no accountability. All hell breaking loose on the streets, no accountability. Does it feel that way to you?
Well, yes, and this is why I think when people look at this, at the polls, and look at what's going on with Trump, and the sort of baffled commentators, how on earth can this appalling man who's a threat to democracy be doing so well? It's because he represents the antidote to this chaos. They love to call Trump the chaos candidate. Well, they're talking about tweeting or whatever. But in real life, in the real world, it's Biden and the Democrats who run the cities and the states where you see most of this going on, and the campuses, all run by the left, where the real chaos is happening.
I'm going to run a soundbite from California Congresswoman Maxine Waters. She thinks that Trump is planning an attack on the U.S. if he loses in November. Watch this, roll it.
I'm going to ask the Justice Department, and I'm going to ask the president to tell us what they're going to do to protect this country against violence if he loses. I want to know about all of those right-wing organizations that he's connected with, who are training up in the hills somewhere and targeting, what communities they're going to attack. We need to know now, given that he's telling us that there's going to be violence if he loses. We need to know what his plan is and how we're going to be protected.
Have you seen any of these camps up in the California hills?
I'd love to see what she's talking about. Honestly, I mean, I don't know where to start. Well, first of all, let's just remind ourselves, that's the person who went out and said, go and attack members of the Trump administration.
She did, that's right.
She's the one that did,
I'd forgotten that.
Fomenting violence. Yeah. But of course, it's so ludicrous. And the thing that makes me laugh about this is, well, first of all, let's remember something else. At the last election, they were boarding up the streets of, the windows in New York. Not if Trump lost, but if he won, because it would be the left that were going to be causing chaos. And who was it that rampaged around in a violent manner in 2020? It wasn't Trump supporters, it was Maxine Waters supporters. So the whole thing is just ridiculous. But the weirdest thing about it, Stuart, I think they've got so lost in their own bubble and their narrative about Trump, they probably even believe this stuff.
It's Trump derangement syndrome.
It really is.
It's still there. We've got more on that later in the show, believe me. Please stay there for the hour, please.
Happy to.
You're my guest for this entire hour.